Should you always correct a student's mistake immediately? Should you offer praise even when the student makes a mistake? Hello, and welcome back to Tea Time with Teacher Esther. Today I wanted to talk briefly about positive correction in the teaching English online world. And with VIPKid, they do give us some training about how to correct in a positive manner. And just recently, VIPKid sent out an email or an article, I believe it was, on the portal, and it just had all the common mistakes that Chinese students in particular tend to make when learning English. I found that very helpful. But I also wanted to share just a bit of my experience. Perhaps you're a new teacher and you don't know exactly what to expect. So first off, these Chinese students are amazing. I love them so much. Most of them, I would say, are pretty great students. They study for possibly 8 to 12 hours a day. They do work really hard. So I have had some students falling asleep in class, but for the most part, they want to make you happy. And sometimes they are a little timid, sometimes their anxiety level is high, and we as teachers, we need to take that into account as we try to teach them and try to lower their anxiety levels so they can feel more free to communicate. That is one thing that VIPKid really stresses is student output. So they normally have their videos before class, and then this 25 minutes that we are with these students, we want to get them talking for the most part. And so what is the best way to do that? So one question I've been thinking about, especially as I've been doing the VIPKid TESOL course, is should you always correct the student immediately when they make a mistake? So I know that if you want the child to really comprehend what they're reading, if you stop them at every other word to correct their pronunciation, well, they're probably going to lose their train of thought and they might not comprehend the material as well. So you really need to take it as a case-by-case basis. I know at times I feel pressured almost to correct immediately if I know a parent is nearby. I guess at the beginning I always thought like, oh no, I have to correct them before the parent corrects them to show that I am paying attention, I'm listening. And someone suggested instead of just stopping them and correcting their pronunciation, if they are still reading and not looking at you like, is this right? Like wanting some sort of confirmation, you can just underline the word that they mispronounced, and then at the end you can go back. Of course, you do have some students. I have some level 4, level 5 students who, as they are reading, they will circle words they don't know, and they obviously want you to help them pronounce it. So then in those instances, I will correct them immediately. But for the most part, I think it's best to let them read the story, the slide, and then go back and be like, was it this word or this word? Like give them an option so they can kind of self-correct. So not only will that help them perhaps save face, not be discouraged or embarrassed if you're constantly stopping them to correct, but it can also help them to really think about how am I mispronouncing this word? How am I misconjugating this word? And help them work through it, and hopefully they will remember the correct answer next time. Another encouraging way to correct is to also provide some sort of praise for something good the student did, and then noting where they could work, where they could improve themselves. So for example, I used to often have a student read a passage, and if they make mistakes, I'd still be like, good job, and then I'd go back and find the error. When I was going through the VIPKid TESOL course, they also talked a lot about fossilization. And you don't want to, especially like with a younger student, if you're like, good job, and not like immediately maybe like having them see where they're messing up, they may internalize that error in fossilization, and that is not a good thing. So what is a positive way that you can help these young ones? And I would love to hear y'all's feedback. How would you go about correcting a student? Would it depend partly on their age? I think for me, I see more the older students being more hesitant to make mistakes, where the young ones maybe aren't quite as concerned. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I would love to know. I think one good method is to have the student stop what they're doing, just be like, wait, stop, listen. If it's a small student and you want them to respond to you, You can pull out a puppet and talk to the puppet and have them respond. That is one very common issue I see, especially with the young ones, is where they just get into parroting you. They just repeat everything you say. You're like, my name is Esther. They're like, my name is Esther. And I'm like, your name is Esther? But anyways, yes, definitely a puppet and modeling is a great way to correct a young student. Now, as far as my older students go, I think recasting is a very good means to correct. So when we first enter a class, we try to build rapport with our new students, and we try to catch up and, build on the connection with our regular students by asking them questions and what did you do today? A very common response is, I go to school. So when we are talking, depending on their age level, I'll probably recast maybe immediately if they're a young student, or maybe a little bit later if they're an older student. I could just say, oh, you went to your grandma's house today? Oh, okay. And make sure that I say whatever they messed up on in the correct tense. And perhaps if it comes up throughout the lesson, I will just focus on it and just make a mental note that they need to work on their tenses. But I try, especially at the beginning, not to overcorrect, because I am also trying to build that connection and just letting them talk and tell me about their day and about their life. So how can we help a struggling student or a nervous student? How can we help lower their anxiety levels? All right, with the young ones, like I mentioned, having a puppet on hand is great for modeling. It's great for modeling our conversation and correcting their mistakes and helping them not always parrot you. And I think it also probably lowers their anxiety level. If they are intimidated by this foreigner who's trying to get them to talk and trying to get them to sing, and there is just like a little overwhelming, perhaps if you are just carrying on a conversation with a puppet, it's more like, they're watching a TV show, and maybe eventually they'll engage with your puppet, and then they'll engage with you. And yeah, really you just have to take it little by little and give them time and space to feel more comfortable with you. Now with my older students, I think one good method of just getting them to feel comfortable making mistakes with you is possibly you trying to say their names in Chinese, or trying to say a phrase they teach you in Chinese. And maybe you can laugh at yourself. You can, it's okay to make mistakes, and get them to realize it's okay for them as well. Of course, I love Google Slides, so that is also a fun icebreaker. Or even if they're really struggling and frustrated, you can see that they're having a hard time, you can pull it out and just try to get them to laugh, like release some of that stress and that tension, and maybe then they'll be able to listen and comprehend and just refocus. So when we are learning new vocabulary, I always try to have Google Slides handy, and they have different props that represent the words we're learning. So that's also a great way. If the student is talking and they forget, I can always hold up the phone to the camera and give them a hint, or maybe I can give them the first letter of a word. So that may also help them not be so anxious. Also, if you are working on conjugations, another thing to do would be to write out a conjugation chart and have them up as they are working on solving some problems. You can just point to it as they make mistakes. So I would love to hear how you have corrected your students and what seems to work well for you. Please don't hesitate to comment below, and I will see you next time. Peace.